Hello everyone, it's August 13th, 2020. I hope you're doing great. I have exciting news that we were wrong in school. History is actually very exciting and very interesting once you know real history, or once you're actually studying real history instead of a narrative, a false narrative that's being perpetuated. So what you see in front of you is an unfinished, we're working on it, but there's no reason not to share it with you now while we're working on it so you can start doing your research if you choose. But a board mapping some of the ancient sites around the world, proving that what we are taught is a lie. At least what I was taught in school. I don't know what you're being taught. I'm not going to assume that. But what I was taught in school, through Catholic school, grade school, and high school, and then following a lot of my friends that were in college and courses, the professors in college and things. I didn't go literally to college, but I've watched enough lectures and researched and read enough papers to, have an idea of what they were, more than an idea of what they were teaching actually. But what they were teaching us is inaccurate. So here's a quick example just to shatter that whole paradigm of what we're taught. What you're looking at was found in the 80s by a Russian lady, a crew. I can't think of her name now. This is off the west coast of Cuba, right around there. Now again, these lines aren't exact, but it's just a general region. This is general. This isn't to be specific and this is exactly where that happened at this. Unless something you want to talk about the longitude, latitude, we are actually somewhat accurate. But this is an underwater city, 2,400 feet underwater. A mile is 5,600 some feet left over. So that's essentially almost a half a mile under ocean water off this coast. So what I was taught in school was, this water changes with the ice ages, way back then when no humans were really, they were hunter-gatherers. They used sticks and stones and flint spear tips, things like that, and they just had no language or written records or history. They were just primitive man. Yeah, well, that did happen, but that's not the whole story. So they also taught us that, this coast during the Ice Age, 300 feet about, give or take, around the world, the oceans were 300 feet lower. So, certain areas. Well, yeah, at one point it was. So that's a truth, but that's not the whole truth. This whole everything changes. Now, I'm going to get a topographical map for my completed version once I'm done with this and I get these all laminated and fancy. But if you look at a topographical map of this country here that we live in, the one that I live in, I don't know where you live, the west coast, the Pacific, is a sharp cliff, and this is much deeper water over here. And then you have mountains, and then it goes down to plains, and then down to the rivers, and then some mountains over here as well. Well, if you look, and then on the east coast, there's sandbars going all the way out where you can see land went way out, miles and miles. Well, if you look at a topographical map, you will actually notice a wave washed over this continent, washed down, left a bunch of sediments here in the plains where we grow farmland now, it's all flat, and then tapered out over here, and literally dropped sand all the way over here. It washed the whole, down here too. Brazil, this is a sharp cliff down into the ocean. Over here there's sand washed over, and there's a bunch of sand here, Amazon rainforest. So topsoil and things. So all this topsoil where Peru was, that is now essentially a lot of desert and things, and the highlands especially, the oceans literally washed that off, scarred that land, and deposited here and in the oceans, etc. But this whole planet shifted, and I'm going to prove that with what I'm saying here. That's 2,400 feet underwater. So at one time, humans were on the ground building that. Humans are somebody, some intelligent being. I'm not going to say they were humans, but I'll let you say that yourself. I know in my head, in my heart, that it was humans. It was us. We were far more advanced. We were giants. There's enough proof now that what we're taught in school is completely wrong. But long story short, this was built by somebody, and I'm pretty positive they didn't go down in scuba gear 2,400 feet underwater and build this. This is man-made structures. Geometric shapes, streets, buildings. There's no doubting that. It's irrefutable. So that's there. So that's there. What over here? This is Bimini. These are parts of, I believe, parts of shipping docks or waterways, something. This is part of a roadway or a ship, a harbor, which is located right here in the Bahamas. The Bimini Road, they call that. At one time, this was Atlantis, a continent in the ocean. Before Atlantic sank and the oceans washed over everything, there was a continent there. There was also a continent in the Pacific and in the Indian Ocean. I'm not going to get into too many details. This is just a preview. The Azores, there are mountains there and islands. The top of those mountains, those islands themselves, are the tops of the continent that sank. The Sahara Desert, this was washed over by water at one time. There was a massive flood, washed over by water. There was civilizations living here until all the sand was literally washed up onto the land and buried countless civilizations. South Africa here. See these wheels? There are hundreds of thousands or millions. Look up Michael Tellinger's work. Oh, I lost a picture right there. This map's getting beat up as I work on it. Michael Tellinger digs into this really good. And there's countless people that do, but he's one of the most prevalent that I'm aware of. Here's another example. Here's unconfirmed by mainstream, but there's plenty of evidence around it and with the shape of it itself that there are pyramids in Antarctica. There's mathematical proof. Karl Munck, a mathematician, brilliant. I've watched his lectures several times, but there's 3 videos, 3 hours each on YouTube called The Code. If you watch that, you will see mathematical proof that these pyramids are connected all over the world, and literally there are parts in Cydonia, Mars, that are mathematically shaped with structures as well. So yeah, there were people on Mars, and I know I may have lost some of you there, but that's okay. You're just not ready for it yet. But there were people on Mars. Our history has been a lie. Here's pyramids through Brazil. See that pyramid complex? They're always found by water, currency, a charge, and then the pyramids harness that energy and utilize it. And this is a grid. This is just a quick visual I got on the internet. I'm not saying that's accurate at all, but I'm saying there are grids that work on a planet like this. This is a picture of the flower of life. This is the ether. This is the source of physical matter in this reality. That's a shape that they drew, and that's the pattern that we all believe. That's how. Number one, it's cymatics. It's also magnetism and electricity, dielectric energy, and it brings shape to the whole world, to everything, to this world itself. Here is walls and mountain complexes in Peru with, well, this is a different place right here, but this place here, it was all part of the same civilization, so it really doesn't matter if it's, this is Punku, and this is Sacsayhuaman. So it's, miles apart, but I believe it was part of the same civilization that worked together. It was a global civilization. But if you look at this place looks like it got wiped out by either a massive earthquake, by a massive earthquake and a flood, if you ask me. Now, you see these temples? These people built. This was not copper chisels, people, nomadic tribes moving around and just building this shit for the fun of it. These were complex, brilliant people that were very dedicated to their work. Look at this lady next to this part. This is the ruins of a wall. This complex goes all the way around this mountain. And then there's cities, buildings and stuff inside of here. And this is just the ruins. We're seeing the foundations of what's left over. Imagine how elaborate. I mean, there's holes lining up through these buildings with holes and pipes and all kinds of things going through them, that this was actually a complex that was building things, a lot of people say. Some people call it an actual quarry where they were mining gold and other elements. But the point I'm showing you with this, massive earthquakes and a flood, if you ask me, because, they dug that down and it was all buried in what looked like a big muddy wave of water. And if it's high enough to go, this is 13,000 feet above sea level. And follow the line right here, where this whole coast of the Pacific is literally gouged from water hitting it so hard that it washed wave over this continent and over this continent to make the fertile land here and fertile land in here and all throughout here. But this all got washed over as well. Literally the whole ocean washed over. Look up Adam and Eve story. Look up Ben Davidson, Suspicious Observers, Adrian Suspect Sky. Again, there's countless people. I'm going to be shouting people out on all these videos because my goal here is not to explain the whole story to you. My goal is to get you to look for it yourself and show you irrefutable proof that what we're taught was a lie and there's a lot more going on. Back to the Azores real quick, in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Follow the line. Azores. They call them cart ruts, tracks. Looks like, I mean, immediately I look at this, and when I first saw them, I was like, wow, that looks like molten lava somebody drove through. Essentially, that's what it looks like. But then when I was doing more research, I realized that fossils and things aren't as old as we're taught. Things age quicker than we're taught. You could use electricity, lightning, or in a lab to fossilize organic matter into stone. There's he's done work with Ben Davidson at Suspicious Observers. What's his name now? He's got a lab that he does all these electrical experiments with, and his name's leaving me at the moment, but I'll come to it. But literally using electricity to create, to turn things into stone. So if you look at this is part of a castle that eroded, and it's got water and things in Eastern Europe. I don't have a string to it where it's at yet, but it's in Eastern Europe, and it's like an old castle or some kind of silos or something, but they literally melted. So that's, in my opinion, plasma discharge from the sun. And I told you guys in previous videos, the sun, everything's connected. So if we're living out of balance here, something's going to bring us back into balance if we don't do it ourselves. So the sun can sometimes solar flare and literally hit the earth so hard with energy that oceans move, stones melt. There's vitrified stone all over the world. Ireland especially has a lot of forts. In the United Kingdom, they have a lot of, and UK has a lot of forts and castles with vitrification. The stone literally melted. I'm talking a castle melted. And I mean, not completely to the ground. Some I'm sure did, that we don't even know they're there anymore. But there are stone walls that literally liquefy from being melted by intense heat. Now, unless these guys had lasers back in those days, which, I mean, I'm not saying they couldn't. Clearly there's something else going. There's a lot more going on here than what I was ever taught. So I don't doubt anything until I research it and prove that it's false. So I keep my mind open to any possible example, just not too open that I believe everything. But you keep it on the back burner. Say, that might be true. We'll see one day. Well, there was either lasers or nuclear war going on, which there was nuclear war going on in places. We'll get to that. But it could have also been a solar flare that literally vaporized parts, and that has happened. The K2 boundary around the world shows that the whole world had a thick carbon mat of fire. So at one time the Earth was burned, and it's pretty much all over the world that I'm aware of. So it does happen, and we've always been around. So there's evidence as long as you look for it and see it.